according to the Office of National Statistics, 1 in 4 children live in lone parent households, and a high percentage of those households are run by mothers. So, why is it that fathers are absent? That's the question many of us have in our hearts. Well, if you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe. Today in studio, I'm joined by 2 amazing men, Dr. Yaya Obozua, a theologian and a teacher at Christ Redeemer College, who has expert knowledge about what it is to be a biblical man, and Dr. Trevor, a mentor, a pastor, and also the founder of theblackhero.com. Welcome. It's great to have 2 of you in studio.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Dr. Trevor, why should people keep watching?
Well, I think we are dealing today with a very, very important topic, and that topic is around fatherhood. And it's a topic which is often put on the back burner, it's ignored, and it's not something that people necessarily think needs to be at the forefront or brought into daily conversation. But the statistics that you mentioned tells us that fathers not being there has a big impact on children. And I know from my experience, I know from reading different important information on fatherhood, that fathers impact the lives of their children mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And so it is very, very important that we grapple with the issues around fathers and fatherhood.
And Dr. Yaya, why do you think people should keep watching?
Yeah, you have 2 practical theologians here and 2 pastors. We were actually having a discussion about fatherhood. This was on Thursday. And we delved into the Bible. We considered foundational matters relating to the Bible, to fatherhood. And at that point, we agreed that it was better for us to not just discuss at the college, but then have this, share this with other people who were not there.
Yes.
And that's the reason why it's important, and I believe it's important for those who are watching to stay on. I'm sure you have a lot to learn about fatherhood, and we also have a lot to discuss or share about fatherhood today.
So you're both grandfathers, and in fact, you're a great grandfather.
I'm a great grandfather, proud to be a great grandfather, yes.
So can you tell me, what was your experience with your father like?
My first experience of my father was when I came to the UK as a child, as a 7-year-old child. And that is when I first met my father. And I really loved my father. He was very calm, very, very gentle. He was a teacher. He still is a very, very teacher. He still is a teacher. And I just loved him. I loved him. And when he used to, any work that he used to do, when he used to go to other families' houses to teach the children, he used to take me and my brother along with him. At the time, we didn't appreciate it, but looking back now, we just think just think that's absolutely brilliant because it made a difference to our education. And when he left, it left a massive hole in our heart. It left a massive gap in our family.
You just said he left. How old were you?
I was probably about 11 years old, so I had known him for about 4 years. And then when I was roughly around 11 years old, he left. Yes.
When you say left, you mean he just left the house or just...
No, my dad was studying, so he would come and go. But age 11 was where we had the conversation. Me and him had the conversation. He called me and he told me that he was leaving and that I was going to be the man of the house. So that sticks in my mind very, very
At
strongly.
age 11.
Age 11, yes, at age 11.
So you met your father. Sorry, you said you met your father for the first time at age 7.
At age 7,
So you'd never seen your father for 7 years of your
I
life.
had never seen my father for the first 7 years of my life.
And then just 4 years later, he left.
Yes, when I came over, he left, and then we would probably see him occasionally, but he wasn't living with us. We weren't living with him.
Okay, I can imagine you probably had a lot of thoughts, a lot of questions. First of all, how did this make you feel, not knowing him for 7 years, finally meeting him, and then him leaving? How did this make you feel?
It was very, very painful. It's caused the family dynamics to completely change. So when he left, it kind of left a big hole in the family, and myself and my brother, we just went into this quiet, silent world because we didn't have anyone to help us explore the loss or the changes. So we each went into our own world, and we tried to cope with that experience in a very, very in our own individual way as children. And the relationship between myself and my brother also became strained because I assumed the responsibility of the man of the house and would often intervene to try and tell my brother, look, you need to be behaving yourself, which wasn't something that I was born to do. I was not born to father my brother. I was born to be his brother.
And how old was your brother?
My brother was 2 years, is 2 years younger than me. So we had that kind of, we were very, very close. We played together a lot. We were very closely knit, tight relationship. But when my father left, it was almost a shock to the system. And as children, as siblings, we just went into our own world. We didn't have that space to be able to talk and say, look, this is how it has impacted me, or this is how it has impacted you. So we just carried the pain and acted out the pain in different ways.
Were you angry?
If you ask me as a child, was I angry? I would probably say no, I was possibly in shock. But as an adult, as I look back on it, I would say, yes, I was very, very angry, which really is a normal response to a loss, a painful loss. I would say that I was angry. And I would say that I acted out that anger in different ways.
What kind of ways?
I think I probably internalized the anger and perhaps was maybe hard on myself. There were activities that I got involved in. So like, and I think we've had this conversation before where I got involved in martial arts. So that gave me some sort of outlet. But I was very close to my father, loved my father very, very much, respected him, learned a lot from him. And I missed him. I was closer to my father than my mother. So I missed him. And so I went into this silent world and my brother went into his silent world. And we kind of drifted apart to the extent when we went to high school, people didn't know that we were related. We went to the same high school, but people didn't know that we were related because we took two different paths.
And have you ever asked your father why he left?
Yes, I've had that conversation with my father as to why he left. And myself and Dr. Yaya, we were talking about the importance of not blaming in order to heal and to progress and to process and to change. Not blaming.
Not blaming. So not blaming the person that left.
not blaming the person. It's acknowledging that the person left, is acknowledging the pain, but it's not being stuck for longing for something that you didn't have and can never have. So I cannot be that little boy who want my father to give me what I didn't have, and I'm angry at him because he didn't give me what I needed and didn't have. So I can hold on to the bitterness. I can hold on to the anger, which is what I did for many years and didn't realize it until I recognized that the danger of going down the same road if you hold on to the anger, because you are somehow trying to compensate, you're trying to self-soothe, a bit like a baby taking a blanket or sucking their finger. You're trying to self-soothe, but it does not deal with the deeper issue that it's a painful loss.
Now, Dr. Yaya, do you mind explaining this not blaming to me? Because for me, if someone's left, they should be blamed for leaving. So why shouldn't we blame them?
Yes, we are the products of our decisions. Anyone can offend you. That's probably how they want to act. They probably don't have the knowledge that you have. And from studying the Bible, I discovered that you could be a man, but a foolish man. Now, if a foolish man makes decisions, he's going to make foolish decisions.
Yeah.
And wisdom is not something you can pick up from the supermarket. You can't go shopping and say you want to buy wisdom. But God says, or the Word of God says in Proverbs 9:10, that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. The Hebrew is chokmah. And you don't get chokmah from the shelf. You need fear of God. So a man who doesn't have the fear of God, he'll make decisions without thinking about the fear of God. And something else, why I came to that conclusion is this. According to a Jewish rabbi, a Russian minister of education asked him a question, said, when does the education of a child start? And you know what he said? He said 20 years before the child is born. And that simply means that a child has to be discipled. Now, if a father wasn't discipled, so what is he going to show? How is he going to disciple his own child?
Yeah, that's true.
He wasn't discipled, so you don't give him that responsibility. And in the first century, disciples were expected to memorize the words of their masters. Disciples were expected to repeat those words. Disciples were expected to imitate their masters and then also go on to duplicate. So 4 things. Now, if a father hasn't gone through this discipleship program and he doesn't even know that there's a discipleship program, of course, he's going to make mistakes. Now, if you eventually discover this discipleship program and you are offended that someone else didn't disciple you, you're stuck in the past, you get angry, you'll not make progress. So you take responsibility for your own life. And that's what I actually, how I solved my own problem. Because I could go back a number of years and list a lot of things that my father didn't do right. And well, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. An example. I remember that I finished secondary school and my dad met me on the street. He was going back home and he stopped me. He said, forget about university education. He said, forget about it. Just go look for a job. I was disappointed. And I just came back from one city. I went to look for admission to go into university. He said, forget about it. Go look for a job. Now, that was devastating. He said it, although he prayed for me and then moved on, just left it, and I went to look for a job. The fact that I have university qualification today is just God's blessing. And if I did not take responsibility for my own career, my life, and I would be there complaining. My dad said there was no money to send me to university, and forget about it. And so I have learned from my own personal experience that you should just reflect, look at. I mean, he didn't have any discipleship program. So why do I expect him to, take me through what he didn't go through? So I shouldn't repeat the mistake. Now I am doing my best to disciple my own children. Even though they've left home, I still communicate with them, sharing wisdom from the Bible with them. So that's the reason why you shouldn't allow things that happened to you as a child to affect your own future. Take responsibility and then move on.
Wow. I guess the main question I have is how do you then deal with the negative effects? Because obviously, it's good to forgive someone, move on, make decisions later that could make your life better. But like Dr. Trevor was 11 and it affected his relationship with his brother. And I don't know if that also affected any other areas of your life. But
It did.
like what?
It affected my education because when you are in pain, education does not necessarily become your number one priority as a child. You are in survival mode because you are hurting. And when my father was around, he provided the focus that we needed. When we were at school, my father and mom noticed that our level of education was dropping. So my father took us under his wings and ensured that we became independent learners. So he would set the books for us to read, do the questions, and mark the questions ourselves. And so I certainly noticed that I was going up in my class at school. So having father around, it made a difference. Your question in terms of forgiveness and the pain, it does not mean we ignore the pain. I think lots of people ignore the pain, and that is the reason why they are stuck. Because it's not about ignoring the pain, it's acknowledging the pain, but not being held back by the pain. You've got to process the emotions, the experiences. You have to process that, because you cannot even get to forgiveness without acknowledging the wrong, without acknowledging the impact that it has had on your life. I could say that I forgive you if you've done me something wrong, but if I haven't looked at what the damage is what the damage has been done, then I'm not too sure what I'm forgiving you for. But once I acknowledge the damage that has been done and the pain it hurts, then the pain that caused, then I'm in a position to make a choice, as Dr. Yaya rightly said. I'm in a position to make a choice. I've got the choice to hold on to the pain, but that's my choice. Or I've got the choice to let go. And if we are honest, and I just love this conversation, if it's honest, at the heart of our pain is, I want you to feel what I felt.
Yes.
I want you to experience what I felt. Because it hurt me so much. And for me, it is my faith played a very, very important part in that. My faith didn't say ignore the pain. My faith says you can look at the pain. You can look at it. What was the damage that was done? How much did it cost? How much did it cost? Because once you know how much it cost, you then make a decision. Am I willing to let go of this? Am I willing to write this off because I know how much it costs? As opposed to, I'm going to forgive you, but I've never looked at the damage. I've never looked at how much it costs. But when I choose to forgive, I know what I am forgiven for. I know what it is that I am foregoing because there's a cause. And the anger that I had experienced was the way that bless you, the way that was dealt with was the fact that the issue wasn't the anger that I was experiencing. The anger is only the secondary emotion. And what I mean by that, the primary emotion was the hurt. The hurt and then the anger was the response to the hurt. Yeah. So that I can continue to hold on to the anger and protect the hurt. The hurt's never going to be healed if I continue with the anger. So I had to drill down past the anger to get to the real root of what I was experiencing, which was the hurt. And that was where I was able to allow God to heal the hurt. And I remember elder from my church. I remember one day we met up in the park and we were having a conversation. And at that time, I'm an adult in the ministry, and he just simply said to me, "Have you forgiven your father?" And of course, you're a minister and you go through the motion. And I said, "Yes, I have forgiven my father." But when I left him, that question continued to echo in my head. Have I really forgiven my father?
How old were you at that point?
I was a grown man. I was probably in my 30s. But it was something that I never really thought twice about until I went onto a program looking at relationships and looking at addressing some of the issues of the past. So when he asked me the question, and when he said to me, "Have you forgiven your father?" And I said, "Yes, of course I've forgiven my father." I realized that I'd never looked at the pain. I'd never looked at the damage. I just said I'd forgiven my father because that's what you do as a good Christian. You forgive. Yeah. But I didn't know what it was I was forgiven. Yeah, what it was that I was forgiven for, because I hadn't looked at the cost. So in my mind, everything's put together. I forgive my dad. But I realized that when certain thoughts came back, certain memories came back, I felt the pain because I hadn't looked at that. And then I had to go on by saying, okay, if I'm feeling hurt in this particular area, then I need to look at that. I need to process that rather than hiding that.
When do you think you eventually dealt with the pain in your life? How old were you?
I would say that it's an ongoing thing, because there might be things that I don't remember. All of a sudden it comes. All right. But I'm not bound by it. I cannot go back into my past and I have my father in me. Again, give me what Dr. Yaya spoke about, that if my father cannot give me what he doesn't have, all right, so even though I want to hold him accountable, you're my father, you are responsible for me coming into the world, I want to hold you responsible, all right? It doesn't matter how long I want to hold my father responsible. If he doesn't have it, he cannot give it. And so I had to get to a place whereby my attention now is turned to my Heavenly Father, my Heavenly Father, and looking at what that experience meant, looking at the fact that I can rest in my Heavenly Father. But I also had men around me, models around me, as Dr. Yaya was saying, that I now had models around me, and my father-in-law was a very good model for the area that I needed to develop in. My elder from my church was a good model in another area in which I need to develop in. And someone else was another model that I could see, that I could develop in. And having those conversations with those men, I realized that they didn't have perfect relationships with their father, but they had taken responsibility. And they were willing now to give and help me to grow and develop.
It's shocking that you're in your 60s, your great grandfather, and you're still healing
Yes.
from pain from when you were 11.
Yes.
So, if being absent in a child's life causes all this pain, why are men absent? Why do they leave their families?
Yeah, pain.
So, men leave their families and cause pain because of pain?
Their pain, because of their pain. Imagine you have experienced something that is very, very painful, and you haven't had the space to process it, to talk about it. Instead, you're quiet. Where is that pain? Where has that pain gone? The answer to it, the pain hasn't gone anywhere because you're still carrying that pain on the inside. All right? So now, unless you are at the place where you are willing to look at your pain, that pain will drive you. It's on the ground, it will drive you. And so where you are in a position that you should be taking responsibility, you can't look at the responsibility because you're reminded by your pain that your father didn't take responsibility and you felt that hurt. So we try to avoid the hurt. We try to avoid the pain. By burying the pain, not talking about it, not processing it, not dealing with it, not handling it, it then unconsciously drives our behavior. And all along, God is saying, I want to heal you.
One of the things which I have discovered is that we don't even understand what marriage is.
Yes.
We don't understand it. So people don't understand fatherhood. We don't understand the roles in the family. For example, Genesis chapter 2:24 tells us that a man will leave his father and mother. Man, a biblical man. Now, we can just say or quote Genesis 2:24.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I think we don't understand it. Who is this man in the first place? And from what I have learned, he's that man who has seen his father and mother and learned from them. He understands what marriage is. And there's unity between him and his parents. That's why he lives. The Hebrew word "zav" means to leave one personhood to form another personhood with his wife. So he understands what personhood means. So when he leaves, two things I've just learned recently is that there's hope and there's also, I would say, faith. Now, hope simply means you leave one relationship and you're going to form another relationship. So you're leaving one relationship with the hope that you will form another relationship. That's number one. Number two, faith is that teaches that this relationship that you've left, you're going to definitely form another relationship. It's not yet formed. When you leave, it's a three-stage process. You leave because you know it's going to happen. So you have this faith that it's going to happen. And you notice in that verse, he says, you leave and cleave. Now, if we understand what cleaving means, I think it would be very difficult for a father to leave his family.
What is cleaving, though? What's
yes. The Hebrew actually means devotion. There's this kind of permanent attraction between two human beings. It could be expressed in genital union, because when you attend a wedding, you hear, okay, the reason why we marry is because of this genital union, to make sure that it's done right context and all that. That's what you hear. But it's an expression of something. It's that permanent attraction. Two human beings come together. There's that relationship. And that just tells you two things again. Number one, love. And number two, trust. There's a difference between faith and trust. Faith, emunah, and trust, you would say batak. Now, it's been explained this way, that when you see a tree afar off, there's no guarantee that it's a tree. But when you see a tree with fruit, then you say, that's a mango tree. So trust is like the tree that has the fruits, but faith is a tree that doesn't have. So when you move from faith, you move into trust. So the cleaving is, you just, the love is there, the attraction is still there, and it's just devotion. One is devoted to the other. And finally, in that same verse, it talks about one flesh, echad. Now, remember we said you leave. Faith is there, and then hope is there. That's when you realize that personhood. And you bring them together. So there's that unity between two people. And that signals something which people may not understand: holiness. So we move from this living to cleaving and then to holiness. So we have faith, hope, then we have trust, love, and then we now have holiness. Because holiness means that you're completely devoted to one another. And if a husband is devoted to his wife and wife devoted to her husband, that's an expression of holiness. So that's what God wants to see. So if you understand these basic things, you will find it difficult to just quit. And that's why I said, if you don't have the blueprint, the program, you don't have this understanding, you know, you offend A, you offend the wife, husband of, or the wife offends the husband. He says he's leaving that relationship. Does she understand why she's in that relationship in the first place? Does he understand why he's in that relationship? Okay, fine, they get married and children come. Now, Proverbs 1 verse 7 clearly says that the father has what you call, says, listen to the instruction of your father.
Yes.
The word instruction there is the Hebrew word musa. Have you ever seen a father who is tough? Say, yeah, that's tough. That child needs that toughness because of something else. In every child, you have what you call evil inclination. The Hebrew is Yetzirah hara. It's the Musa that helps to straighten that child. So, so Trevor told us about his dad. That's something which he missed because the Yetzirah hara is in a child. But then if the father was there, he could have helped to straighten that inclination to make him to become a father who will be able to then disciple his own children. So, but when that is missing, then you'll see a lot of things happening in the family.
Wow. Wow.
Can I just pick up on that point
Yeah.
that Dr. Yaya made? Because a child will push boundaries and will keep on pushing and pushing and pushing boundaries. And a child feels secure when they have the boundaries intact, when they know that the boundary is intact, that you cannot go beyond these boundaries. And this is what Dr. Yaya is saying, that the father would set the boundaries so the child then feels secure because they know what the boundaries are, as opposed to pushing, and keep on pushing and not come up against the boundaries that enable them internally to know where they stand. A child will keep on pushing until they find those firm boundaries.
Wow. I'm still finding it. You know what you mentioned about pain?
Yes.
I still want to understand it. Dr. Yaya, did you ever experience that pain? Because Dr. Trevor said men leave because of pain. That's why men do it. So did you ever experience that pain maybe before you got the biblical understanding?
As a husband, the truth is, I love my wife. When my dad told me that there was no more education, the first thing I thought about was marriage. I was going to marry from the village. So I wasn't expecting to marry a lady from the city. Just felt, well, I was the end of the road concerning marriage. Just when the time comes, they'll probably send me a wife from the village. That was what I thought. So, and God just took control of my life. Things just changed. It was a miracle. And God made me to meet my wife. In terms of the standard, it's like you want to buy a car. You probably thought about buying a very cheap car. And someone now says, take a Rolls Royce. So that was how I felt. And I told her, and I told my children, that so God gave me more than I deserve. So in terms of pain, what I haven't really experienced, I can't really say much about it, but did my wife offend me? Initially, I thought she did. Did she make mistakes? Yes. Did I blame her? Yes. When I reflected on it, I said, I shouldn't have blamed her because it was my impatience that led to the mistakes that she made. And I believe I apologized when I got back. That I was responsible for the mistakes. So the question now is, if I held on to the pain of those mistakes, could have just be false accusation, isn't it? I was responsible, partly responsible for the mistakes. She didn't know, I didn't know. And that's why I said I didn't want to blame my parents for not telling me about wisdom for marriage. Didn't want to blame the religious leaders around me because they didn't know. So it's my responsibility. It took time, but I realized that I made mistakes. So if the pain is not there anymore, and the pain, I'm grateful to God that I was able to get rid of the pain. But imagine if I held on to those pains.
You'd probably argue every day.
And defend myself. And if there's any discussion, argument, oh yeah, well, you did this, you did that, you did this, catalog of things, bookkeeper. So it's one should examine anything that causes pain and ask yourself a question. Did I contribute to this? If the answer is yes, okay, fine. Why am I blaming this person then? And I did. My wife didn't. Other people blamed her for some of the mistakes that she made. Of course, there were mistakes that people knew about. But I said, okay, fine. Well, I've just acted as a foolish man. I acted as a foolish man because people knew and they blamed her. They didn't know that I was partly responsible for the mistakes. So this is, I know it's a very tough question and very difficult thing to manage, especially if someone has offended you and you can see the scar. It's easy to see things, but reflect on it. Did I not make mistakes myself? I did. I didn't pray for wisdom. I made mistakes. And so it's just the grace of God that helps. If God did not forgive me, I wouldn't be here today. I did. Yeah, if God did not forgive me, I made mistakes. I sinned. So there's two different things now. You make mistakes, then you commit sin. I was a sinner before I became a Christian, but God forgave me. So it's when you understand forgiveness. Forgiveness is Shuvah, for example. You can have, or repentance. All starts with repentance, really. If someone sins against, or if you've done something wrong, the best thing to do is to go and ask God to forgive you. And forgiveness means you make a U-turn, just 180 degrees, is it? You go back completely. Whatever you used to do, just let it go so that you can get forgiveness. Yes, it's true that people need to come to that point, but if they don't get to that point, what do? You don't hold on to the things they've done. Just ask God to help you. And I do that every time. He wants to give me grace. Because and he comes and heals. It's God understands, and this is the way I handle it.
So apart from pain, what are the other reasons why fathers might end up leaving their homes?
Can I just kind of expand on the pain?
Sure.
Because as human beings, we are created and we have very, very important needs. In the same way that we have need for food and warmth and shelter,
Yeah.
we have those deep connections that Dr. Yaya spoke about, because they shape us. They shape the way that we form and the way that we have developed. And there's the assumption that our parents are perfect,
Yeah.
because anytime you want to hold on to pain, you are saying that my needs weren't met. You are in the position as my parent, you should have met my need.
Yeah.
Because my assumption is that as a parent, you were in a position to meet my need. So we assume that our parents is perfect in every way, that they are the ones who were designed to meet our needs, and they have met our needs. But also, as well, a child can start to blame themselves. That the reason why my father left is because of me, because my father is perfect. And if he left, it must be because of my own imperfection, the way that I am. So that is very, very important. And so a child blame, because I certainly wasn't conscious of it, but I actually blamed myself. Was it something that I did? And you go about asking the question. Because when you experience pain, you want to know where is this pain coming from. When you experience a loss, you go in search. You go searching for something that you realize you had, but there's a pain on the inside, and you may not be able to put your finger on the pain. And so there is a search. There's a search, and you may have a father who is searching for something, may not know what it is that they're searching for. But they know that they don't have what they need to meet the needs of their children, because they haven't left. Yeah, they haven't left their family of origin, emotionally, psychologically, mentally. They haven't left. They're still holding on to what they didn't get, and they expect to get from the family of origin. All right. So then they can't cleave, because the emotional, psychological, spiritual energy is still trying to resolve what they didn't have, what they didn't get in the past. Their children remind them that I didn't get this. All right. And so they haven't matured. They're still stuck in the child mentality, because it's a child that is dependent. Yeah, a child is dependent. I can't leave because I am still dependent. When I get to a place and I understand about independent, then I can go into a relationship with a person who's willing and ready to take responsibility for my own action. And so we see in the beautiful chapter of Corinthians chapter 13, where Paul is talking about love, he's talking about faith, talking about hope. There's a particular verse there that I think is relevant to the whole process of learning to take responsibility. And that verse is, when I was a child, I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. I understood as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish. But if I'm still holding on, it says I'm still a child. I'm still thinking like a child, because it's the adult who puts away. The adult says, okay, right, now I need to take responsibility. Yeah. Now I need to mature. So I'm no longer thinking like a child, because I've recognized that I no longer need to be throwing my toys out of the pram because my father didn't give me what I needed. I realize now that I need to move into that adulthood, that maturity Dr. Yaya is talking about, because I now need to take up my responsibility. I can't do that with my child if I'm still trying to. All my investment is in my past. It's in my family of origin. I haven't detached. I haven't pulled away that investment to now invest into a new relationship and now invest into the life of my children, because I'm still holding on. I'm still searching. And this is the reason why you may have some adults who still want to go to the nightclub, still want to go to the, because there's still that child on the inside. All right.
I've seen many of those. Many
Right.
40s, 50s, still going clubbing.
Absolutely. And then it's the child that's trying to parent the parent. And so because they haven't made that shift, that when I was a child, I thought like a child. So when I was a child, I longed to have my dad around. I, wanted him to be there. But actually, I've got to let that go. I've got to say goodbye to that. I've got to feel that hurt, because I can't start to heal until I feel the hurt.
Yeah.
And when our body is healing, the first thing that happens is that we start to feel the pain, and we mistakenly think that feeling the pain is something bad. But actually, the fact that the only one who doesn't feel is somebody who's dead. So as I'm coming back alive, I begin to feel the pain. And as I begin to feel the pain begins to ease down, because I'm no longer running away from the pain. I'm no longer driven by the pain. As a mature adult, I can process the pain, whereas children don't have that capacity as yet. They run, they hide, they back off from it. They don't want to be in a situation whereby anything can trigger the pain. So I had to sit down with my parents and talk through, because I realized that I was a stage whereby it wasn't no longer about them. It was about me healing. It wasn't about me blaming them. It was me understanding what I need to experience now that I am an adult, because I need to shift from thinking like a child, understanding like a child, to now moving to the adult that can now cleave. I can't do that as a child. The child has a different type of bonding. Yeah, they have a bonding in that family of origin. But when you mature now, you then need to leave. But you cannot do that properly if you're still holding on to the hurt and the pain.
Wow. That's quite deep. Because sometimes I wonder why, is this person at this age doing this or doing that?
Still a child.
Yeah, you never actually think, they're doing
Still a
it
child.
the stuff they didn't get to do as a child. And
still a
they
child.
Want to live it out now.
Yes, and goes back to what Dr. Yaya has said, that actually, how do you move on if you don't have a model, if you don't have the insight that actually now I can now see that this is my childhood, this is the child period. And now I'm conscious that this is a child period. Now I need to move on. But you can't move on if you don't have the guidance, if you don't have the model, if you don't have the insight into how do I move on, into now taking that responsibility, especially if you haven't seen it modeled. And for me, I saw it modeled around. I needed the affirmation, because every child needs to have that affirmation. One important thing of a father is affirming the child that, irrespective of the way that you behave, you as a person, you have value, you have worth. And we see in the Bible where God says the father says to the son, "This is my beloved son." Every child needs that affirmation. This is my beloved son, in whom I am well pleased. Now, my father has said it to me subsequent years, following on from the conversation that we had, but it was never before. But then I could receive that because I'd already received that affirmation from God that you're okay. you're okay. And that's very, very important.
Wow. Wow. Did your father ever tell you what his reason was?
I understood from my father what his reasons were. I understood from my father the challenges that he had, and I understood the challenges from my grandfather.
Wow. Generation.
The generation, and it wasn't a generation curse that people tend to think. It's very much going back to what Dr. Yaya says. If you don't have the model, you create your own model and you pass on what you think is the model, but actually it is the wrong model. So if my father left, that's the model that I have to work with. Then I believe, because in my mind, it didn't do me any harm because I've forgotten the pain. So the pattern repeats itself. And so I sat down with my father. I understood where my father was coming from, but I wasn't going to take my father's responsibility. That belongs to my father. My father has to process all of that himself. What I'm concerned about is me and what I pass on. What I pass on, the model that I pass on as a father, a grandfather, a great-grandfather. What would my great-grandson be saying about his great-grandfather? That's what I'm concerned about.
So, you mentioned pain. So, apart from pain, what other challenges do men face that make them leave their homes?
I think expectations from their wife, their partner, whatever you want to call it, the expectations that you be a man. All right. So the expectation is that you be a man, the expectation that you play that role, you take that responsibility. But if inside I'm a child and you are saying this to me, you're scaring me. But I would not tell you that you're scaring me.
Wow.
Some men will lash out.
How?
Right? Physically, become physically violent. Because they feel that you are overstepping your mark. All right? Or they feel that you're nagging them. So to deal with that situation, they get out. They move away. All right? Because that's what the model that they have seen. That's how they understood. That's the child processing and working through, because they don't have the tools to process it as an adult. So let's sit down. Let's talk this thing through. These are the expectations that I have, that you have of me. I don't have this. And so it's important that men connect up with other men and start to learn to process that. So there are fathers who do want to be around. They do want to be around the children, but where the relationship between themselves and the child's mother becomes strained, and the mother may say, well, actually, no, I don't want you around. Yeah. And so the father aren't able to play the role that they would want to play, because it goes back to what Dr. Yaya said. I think it's a very, very important point. It starting off with the relationship, the two relationship. So if I don't love my wife, then that's going to have an impact, because my children are going to see that. So it's very, very important that the parents create that safe net, because we know, going back to what Dr. Yaya says, that the child will, if there's no boundaries in place, will push. So mum would say one thing, dad would say one thing, mum would say one thing, and the child is just playing both parents off each other, because there's no unity, there's no connection.
I'll add to just contribute to what Trevor just said. I think parents may not understand the word child, what it really means. It's broad. Now, when you look at a child, especially if you read the book of Proverbs, chapter 1, tells you that this child is immature. So if God gives parents children, the gift that God gives to them is an immature or immature human beings. And what do you do with a Naa? God gives us an example of what you do. A Naa is someone who is immature. You may even say he's a fool.
Wow.
Now, Jeremiah said, "Oh, I am a youth." That's the, but you don't. But the Hebrew is I'm a Naa. I'm immature.
Child, yes.
Wow.
And God said, "Don't say so." But you see, God as a father, developing, or he took over the Naa, and he made him a prophet. Helped him to become a prophet. So that's one. Then a child is also has indulgences or loves to do things like, Dr. Trevor just mentioned that. But he can become a fool, a Kasil. Again, that's Kasil knows wisdom, knows what's right, but rejects it because he won't let him do what he wants to do. So if you have a child who is a Kasil, how do you handle a Kasil, a child who knows wisdom but rejects it? How do you transform that child? So again, that's something that parents need to know, and the father has a role to play there. Now, when we use the word child, we sometimes think about teenagers.
Yeah.
But teenagers are in transit. They're leaving one stage to go to another stage. So you think about it. Have you ever been in transit? You're traveling from one
Place to another.
airport to another airport, and how did you expect them to treat you, the airline? You wanted
Respect.
Yes,
of
you
course.
wanted food, that's not your home. You're in transit. So teenagers are in transit. If you continue to treat them as you treat children, you have revolution in your hands.
Yes.
Now, they expect you to treat them as adults. Now, this is where sometimes you have conflicts in the family. A father wants to treat the teenager as a child and wants to continue to do so. The mother probably realizes that this is now a teenager, so wants him treated as an adult, and the conflict starts. And because there is this conflict, marital conflict, he's not able to stay at home. Then she nags. Then he goes to the rooftop to stay, avoid relationship, and you push him, he can't go anymore higher than the roof, then he finds his way out of the house.
Wow.
So again, it's understanding the family, understanding marriage. But if people don't understand these things, the basics, then we're likely to continue to have marital conflicts that will push men out of their homes.
Wow.
Yes.
And then just add to the expectation, it's actually, I'll probably say it's high prescriptive expectation. Because society says that this is what a father
Yes.
should do.
Yes.
Pay the bills.
Then
Yes.
the in-laws will say, well, as a father, this is what you should do.
Yeah.
And the wife has been told this is what
your husband should be doing.
husband should be doing.
Yes. Yes.
And so this high prescriptive expectation, if the man cannot manage it, he quits.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. But there's something you mentioned. The man not communicating to the wife. So maybe if he's able to communicate it, then he wouldn't quit, right?
Yes, I think it's. I was actually doing a study on the book of Job, Job chapter 2, verse 9. You notice when his wife said, "Bless God and die."
Most people
Now,
say
the
it's
Heb-
curse God and die.
Well,
Curse them. Curse
that's what is written. But if you check some other translation, English translation, they actually say
Bless
bless,
God. Wow.
and the Hebrew is actually bless, bless God and die.
Wow.
Now, you notice after that, Job started talking. So the question is, why did he not say those things to his wife before verse 9? And I came to this conclusion that this macho thing is there. It's a problem. Men don't like to talk.
Yeah, that's true.
They're suffering and pains. You don't want the wife to know and say, well, I'm a man. You shouldn't know. I share things with my wife. Any little pain, look, why? Look, I'm having pain here. Why? Because there's no need to. That doesn't make you a man. You're going through things and you can't share with your wife, and you think that makes you a man. You don't understand who a man is. So she's there to help. Actually, Genesis 2:18 says you become Isa. She's Isa Kinekdo.
What's that mean?
Helpmate. So the Isa is a military term. It's help. So she is in that relationship to bring help to this man. So the psalmists were told, you see it, and you prayed, God, come and Isa me, come and help me. So she's there to bring help from God to the man. And so if you don't tell your wife you're in pains, then who else will you tell? I've been blessed by just sharing with my wife, please come pray for me. And God answered the prayer because she's there. That's the mandate she has, to bring help. I need help, so get help from God. And I enjoyed it. So it's I don't believe that you have to, this macho thing. It's sometimes the man wants to act in that way, and if he doesn't get his way, things don't work well, he goes out, commits crime, just to prove that he's a man,
just to feed the family,
and so it's I think we need an understanding of marriage, the role of a husband, role of a father, and we understand these things, we'll be fine.
So how can me speaking as a woman, how can you identify when your husband is being like that, and what can you do to make him talk?
Yes,
because some men might not want to feel weak, by saying.
Yes, if a man doesn't talk, I think this takes me back again to this discipleship thing. During courtship, a woman needs to understand the man. You're going to marry this person. Find out who this man is. And that takes me back again to Genesis 2:24. If you're going to form another personhood, and there's cleaving, there's this devotion, and there is this reciprocal kind of relationship. I help you, you help me. When that is formed in the family, it will be very easy to talk and say, this is who I am. We tried, but once you get the wrong definition of a husband, the wrong definition of who a wife is, or wrong understanding, then these things will happen. I had to take responsibility for my own marriage. Yes, my parents, my father is from a particular part of Nigeria, my mother from another part of Nigeria. Of course, they have their own customs, have things. But I just told myself, fine, I will not be defined by theirs. So what does God want? So it made me to study the Bible and to find out what um, marriage is. My wife can ask me any question, and I want to be free to ask her any question. So it's something that you build. Once that relationship is, I don't know, since I actually started understanding God's will, I ask myself, if God says, did you go through all these stages in your relationship with your wife? What will I say on the day of judgment? That's how hard I've put it on myself. I'm not trying to please anybody. I want to please God. Because if I please God, I please myself, I please my wife, and I please all godly people. So it's not about anybody now. It's about me pleasing God. So that's made it easy for me to be asked questions. But if a wife wants to start this journey, it's never too late. You need to sit down with your husband, meet with people who are mature. Dr. Trevor said he had role models. So you look for role models around you who have overcome and who are actually living this life, and they have this they've discovered a model that works well. And that is one way to start the whole thing. You both agree that things are not right. That's their acknowledgement, and we want to fix it. With that determination, it's easy to say, okay, fine, what's wrong here? What do you do? Learn, and then it should be okay. I think this is my answer to your question.
Can I just this thing about communication is so important. I think before anyone goes into a marriage relationship, they need to ensure that they communicate. That because communication, what I've learned, is the lifeblood of any relationship. So in the way, same way the body has blood, if you're not communicating, it will destroy the body. So communication is an important part of that, of any relationship. I was one of those silent people in the relationship. I was a silent knight, knight in shining armor, but I was very, very silent. And I did not know the impact that it was having on my wife. And so if we have a disagreement, the way that I would handle the disagreement is to go inward, because I'd learned that's the way to deal with it. Or I will go out. All right, I will go into the silence. And for me, that seemed to be a fantastic way of dealing with the conflict, because I am not being aggressive, I'm not being abusive, etc., 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 until I understood that silence is abusive. Silence is abusive.
How?
Because if I'm silent, you don't know what's going on in my mind. And you want to know what's going on in my mind, but I am silent. I was an expert at silence. I can hold you at bay for a long, long time, because I'd learned to go into my world, and I wasn't aware of how my wife wanted to find out what was going on, what was actually happening with me. Until, as I said, until I recognized that actually my silence was abusive, because it kept somebody else out. It did not allow. It broke down the communication, because we're not communicating. Because my silence meant one thing to me. I understood what my silence meant, but I did not know what my silence meant to my wife. All right. Because in her mind, she was thinking all sorts of things because of my silence, whereas my interpretation of my silence is, I don't know what to say, I don't know how to say it, and I don't want to say anything that
Make things worse.
Right.
Yeah.
But my silence was the fact that I made a choice that I'm not communicating with you. But my silence is communication. It's just the fact that the other person has to interpret, has to guess what my silence means. All right. And so you can imagine if you come from a background where silence meant something totally different. Silence meant go to a room and don't talk to me. Then when you are now in a relationship and this person you're with is silent, then that interpretation, that view is what you interpret this situation as being.
They want to be alone.
You want to be alone. And so the other thing as well, Dr. Yaya said a very, very important thing. This fear of who you are. There's a book, and I was really trying to remember what the title of the book was called. But the author of the book, but the title of the book is Why I Am Afraid to Tell You Who I Am. So in the relationship, you have a relationship where the person's wife wants to know because they love, they care. But the man may feel that if I show my vulnerability to you, because society says that we hide our vulnerability
to look strong.
But somehow if I share my vulnerability with you, you might exploit my vulnerability, or you might think I'm less because I am being transparent and I'm being open with you. So I protect myself. I don't tell you what's going on inside, all right? But if I understand, like what Dr. Yaya has said, the nature of the relationship, the faith, the love, the trust, the cleaving, it means I'm in a safe place, all right? Because I can only open up if I feel safe and secure. But if I don't know you and you don't know me and the communication hasn't been developed, then I'm not going to let you in. Because I can see what's inside there. I can see my weakness. I can see my vulnerability, but I don't trust you. Whereas for women, it is, well, tell me. I can handle that. I can deal with that.
I want to know so I can help you.
I want to know so I can help you. But society says, no, don't take down our shield. You have to protect yourself against the world. But this is the person that you say you love. This is the person that you're in a relationship with. This is the person that you're supposed to be cleaving with. If you can't trust them, then you cannot trust. You cannot move on. You cannot grow as a person. You can say, well, I trust God, but actually you've got that relationship with this person that God has allowed you to be with, but you don't trust.
So as a person who was in that position before,
yes,
what did you do? How did you solve that problem? How were you able to open up to your
Well,
wife?
the thing about it, one, you can't change something you don't know. You definitely can't change something you don't know. So I was in a program and I realized that actually the silence was abusive. I recognized. So once I realized the silence was abusive, I had to speak to my wife about that. That actually this is what was really going on inside when I'm silent. And then I had to look at alternative way of processing what I felt. So if we had a disagreement, I had to learn to accept that the disagreement wasn't something bad. Two things cleaving together, you will rub up against each other. But that is how you begin to really cleave. And I had to accept that, no, my wife wasn't trying to have a go at me. It's the fact that we are now defining in our relationship what are our values. I brought my values, my wife brought her values. But in this relationship here, we've got to decide what is our value. And so I then had to recognize that actually, if I'm going into that silent world, my wife would remind me. And I had to say, I just need the space for an hour or so, or 2 hours. I need the space. And then once I've processed that, I will come back. So the communication was now beginning to open up. That my wife knew that my silent, that I just need to have that space. But she also knew that once we had that space, that I would open up. All right. And so we had to then practice that. That's something you got to learn. You make a mistake, you relapse, then you got to come back and practice it. And so that's how able to move from that being that silent. And what I discovered was that actually my wife really wants to help me. She really, really does want to help me. She's not putting me down. She's saying that connects us even more, because we're able to bond emotionally, and then to be able to grow together.
And also it makes people come together closer to be able to work and solve the problem.
Yes.
If she knows what's going through your head.
Yes.
And that brings us to oneness.
Yes.
The heart became one flesh. And to add to what Dr. Trevor has just said, recently I started reflecting on who we are. I was actually I'm presently teaching pastoral theology and care. And one of the things that we discussed in class was the image and likeness of God. Whatever you do, your care, whatever we want, that's what we want as the goal of pastoral care. We want that God made this person in his own image and after his likeness. A person who would express himself in the form and likeness of God. So you take that and come to verse 26 of Genesis 1, where it talks about having dominion. But actually, it's not this idea of fighting and all that. It's godly rule. How can your family experience godly rule? So that's important. How can a wife experience godly rule, and how can a husband experience godly rule? So it takes us back again to the image and likeness. So in form and action. So that's the word, the Hebrew word actually, the likeness means in form and action. So how would God behave in this situation? You once you grasp this concept that God made you to act in a godly way, and then to have not what dominion is, sounds like a military term. But actually it's an expression of godly rule. It's an expression of godly rule in the family. So you start from the family, community and so on. So how can this be done? So I think it's then brings us back to God's expectation, living, and being one. So if this is the goal, then I don't personally see the difficulty with husband, wife, communicating. Every night, we have to make sure, let's pray together. So I tap my wife, even if she's asleep. Now let us pray before we sleep. If I travel and I call her, let us pray. Every night. If there's any problem between both of you, you'll find it difficult to go to God and say, with the problem, you're not happy with her, she's not happy with you, say, let us pray. To who? So you're forced to
discuss it.
And try to clear things. So pray before you sleep. And I think that's way, and we've done this now, can't remember when we started, but it's gone on now for a number of years.
Wow.
So I don't know, I can't remember when we started, but
Wow. So you've mentioned pain, you've mentioned maturity, not being a child but being mature. You've also mentioned communication. You've mentioned the responsibilities that are forced on a man, like finance, all of that. It seems like it's a bit hard being a man. Many women, especially me, have thought, being a man is so much easier than being a woman. You guys don't give birth, you don't have to do all that.
Right.
But what are your thoughts of that?
I think it's equally challenging for both. And this is the reason why the wisdom of the Bible says two is better than one. And the companionship as we navigate through life. They've shown that people who live longer are people who are in relationship,
Wow.
as opposed to people who are isolated and living by themselves. And so I think it's able to appreciate the challenges that each one of us face in society and within the home. How is that? How do we work together to face the world? But I think it's not a competition to sort of say, well, the man's role it's easier or the woman's role is easier. I think it's how can we work together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, I was actually interested in what Dr. Trevor said about two better than one. Coincidentally, that's what I'm actually studying now. I'm studying the book of Proverbs, and that's chapter 4, verse 9.
Yes,
That's what you've
yes.
just two better than one. I went back and normally go try to reflect on what King Solomon was saying, the context. Before then, he talked about a man who is alone and amasses a lot of things, material. It's got material possessions. And the question is, who takes them? Who inherits them? He doesn't have anybody.
Wow.
Then verse 9 now talks about these two better than one. Now, I'm happy you said this because it was something fresh I've just learned about two better than one. If as a single person you are able to, for example, get 10,000 pounds, if two of you come together and you get 20,000 pounds, then in my opinion you don't understand two better than one. Because if you divide the 20
Yes, you got
by
10.
2 is 10.
Still 10, yeah.
So if two of you come together and, for example, you are able to get 30,000 pounds, divide it into two, 15
Yes.
is more than
10.
You've done better.
Yes.
than just one. So sometimes we don't set goals. And if we come together, we set goals, then we will be able to get the best
Return. Yes.
Now, regarding women and men, yes, again, if you look at Adam, for example, I like what the Jewish rabbi said when the woman was made, he called his wife woman, Isha. But after the fall, Genesis chapter 3, but that's a generic noun. But then he then gave her a name in Genesis chapter 3. That's a proper noun. And the word Eve simply means she who gives life. It's like he explained in this book. He said it's like he just came to realize that there's something in this woman that he didn't know.
Yes.
The womb is there, and now she, with God, she's the one that will give birth to the child.
Yes.
So a woman that doesn't understand all these things will not know that she is in partnership with God. And something else happened. I was trying to study Hebrew, and my Hebrew teacher said we were studying for Samuel, and then she read and she said, "Do I know the difference between why the name, the Hebrew name for the woman, for the womb, and mercy seemed to be looked the same or sound the same?" I said, I don't. I told her, I said, I didn't understand. Then she said, because in the womb, the child gets everything: protection, food, life, blood, everything. Now, that's what the woman is carrying. Man, we don't have it. We don't have that. It's the safest place for a child. So, yes, you go through all these things, but when there is that cleaving, oneness, there are times when the man is weak and there are times when the woman is weak. But because of that unity, we support one another. And it's not that it's very easy for the man or it's very easy for the woman. If we know our responsibilities, we can support one another. That's what we do in offices, isn't it?
Yes.
And so why can't we do it at home? So we can help one another. My wife helps me and I help her. After our children left home, when they were home, they used to help with dishes and so on. Then I thought about it. If I leave that responsibility and say, wife, go on, do it, then she'll come back from work. I come back from work, cook. Then I said, no, that's wrong. So I can put on the apron and do the dishes. I actually told her, I said, I'm now your KA, kitchen assistant. So I won't compete with you because she's a caterer. I won't compete with you when it comes to food. I can cook, but when she does it in her own way, and I don't want to upset her. So she takes responsibility for that. The simple things, boil rice, that's not a problem. But there's some areas I don't, want to go to. But then dishes, now I enjoy it. I stay there within few minutes, less than something, 20 minutes. Dishes all done, pots cleaned. And so she doesn't have to do that. So if a man says, I'm a man, I won't do that.
Absolutely.
It's the role, the responsibility of the woman.
Yes.
She's going to break down. And then she will think this way, that, it's a lot easier for men, women,
Yes.
So what I can do, I'll do. Or what a husband can do it. Because if she's fit, then you have a wife that is fit. But if she breaks down, then it's a big problem.
Yes.
So I think we need to rethink this idea of things being easy for one, for the husband, and so we need to. I don't think it's correct. Personally, we should understand, like Dr. Trevor said, communication. If we communicate and say, this is what I want to do, then fine, I go shopping, no problem. So it's just mindset sometimes.
Yes.
What are some of the other misconceptions about, fathers and mothers that people have that you'd like to talk about?
Well, we often talk about the fact that the father is the breadwinner, and mother is the nurturer.
Yeah.
In some relationships, it might be that, but it's important to know what works in your relationship. So, you might be a woman with a career and you're good at what it is that you do. And the father may be the one that wants to look after the child because they kind of feel that way, the real kind of feel that they want to be there for the child and they're good at looking after the child. But society then says, no, you are the man, you need to be going out there, you need to be earning.
Yeah.
Whereas the women's earning capacity may be a lot more, and she's very happy to do that. And so it is being able to work through what works within your relationship. Also as well in terms of who's responsible for the finances, because those are areas we know. Communication, we know finances tend to be areas whereby there is a perceived role for the man, there's a perceived role for the finances. My wife is better at managing the finances than me. She has that oversight. She's a lot better than doing that for me. Whereas in the office, in the workplace, I might be managing a budget, but at home she is better than me. Her eyes in terms of looking at the house and seeing what colors go where. She has a tremendous gift and ability to do that. It's not for me to say no. It's going to be this color, and that's the color that's going to be. No, that's she's better than that than me. I might be colorblind. I might even recognize it. So it's all of those things, but it comes back down to communication, having the communication. Well, what works with us as a family?
Well, in a world where, well, we have this idea a woman can do whatever a man can do. That's the idea out there. What are the unique contributions that a father brings to a child's life that a woman can't, that his mother can't bring?
Well, you are right that there are individual roles and responsibilities that there are things there that a father cannot do. And Dr. Yaya has quite rightly highlighted the fact that as a man, I cannot carry a child. I don't have a womb. But I think each role is unique. If there wasn't something that a father can uniquely input into a child, then I don't think God would create us to have two parents. So there is something unique that a father is able to input. Interestingly, they've done research around the father reading to a child. And what they've said is that a father has more influence around reading with a child. It helps a child a lot better. And this is kind of research done in America. And over here, they have something within the early years called FRED, F-R-E-D, fathers reading every day to the children. And what they've said is that has an impact on the child. The father having that time with the child where the father is reading to the child and the child is taking on board what they are experiencing with the father. Discipline, society has done it in a way that, I remember growing up, and there used to be this program, and it's called Wait Till Your Father Gets Home, right? Wait until your father gets home. So you're messing me around, but wait until your father gets home, because father was seen as the disciplinarian within the relationship. But, I know some moms who are very, very good at putting out discipline. But there's something unique about the father, in the father's relationship with the different gender, father's relationship with their daughter, the father's relationship with his son. The father is the father who affirms their daughter that you're beautiful, you are excellent, etc., because the father is the first male that the daughter encounters. So that father role in terms of validating their daughter becomes very, very important. The father tells the daughter, father sets the scene for the daughter's subsequent relationship with her husband. So that's very, very important. But a father, in terms of the father-son relationship, is also very, very important. Within the womb, the child hears the mother's voice from the womb. Then what happens when a child gets to the teenage years, a boy gets to the teenage years, adolescence begins to kick in, there are changes that are taking place. The testosterone begins to kick in. At that particular stage, an important role of the father is to be able to work to pull the child away from mother, to help that child, help that boy grow and develop into manhood, into that adulthood. And we see within African culture that has been so overlooked the importance of that rites of passage and the importance of that role that the father plays in terms of helping that child through the transition into manhood, into adulthood. You take the father out of that scene, then the father, the boy, is just simply connected to his mother. Now, when the boy becomes the man and wants to connect to his wife, he struggles because emotionally he's still connected to mother. Emotionally still connected to mother. He hasn't made that emotional separation to now where he's able to cleave. So the important role of a father is to help that son to be able to pull away from mother and begin that emotional journey so that they're prepared to cleave to their wife.
Can I add to or contribute to what Dr. Trevor just said? For a father, yes, I agree that a father has a role to play. He is, as you study the book of Proverbs, he is expected, as a father is expected to be a chacham.
What does that mean?
A chacham is a person who has chokmah, which is wisdom. So a person who has chokmah is called a chacham. So you want to raise another chacham after you, because you move from there to become a person who has understanding. So you're raising a chacham for the community, because you will soon become a zeken. A zeken is an elder, so who has wisdom. So if we bring this community concept into the whole thing, you are in that community to raise wise men for the future, because you will soon become a zeken, and when you are no more there, you have a chacham you have raised for the community. So God has set the fathers in families to help raise wise men in the community. And that's one thing which I learned from the book of Proverbs. And as you come to Proverbs chapter 31, you see the mother still, but from 31, from verse 1 to 9, still at work. It's almost like saying, "Oh, have you seen my mom still correcting me, even though I'm now a king?" But makes you to remember Proverbs chapter 1, verse 8, 9, makes you to remember what he said or wrote in Proverbs chapter 1. So the father has a role to play. We want a chacham, and actually the plural is chachamim. We want more wise people in the family, in the society, or in the community. But this starts from the family, father, mother. The father has a role to play. You don't pass it on to mom. And that's why I like that verse 8. It says, the mother, listen to your mother's Torah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why women talk. It's a gift. Use it well, because you want to raise wise men for the future. So if you look at the street, go to the high street, and you look at the men there, you ask yourself, do we have wise people in this community? If the answer is no, the failure is back.
Yes.
Wow.
Trace it back to the family.
Yes.
So if we can fix the family, what you see on the street will be different.
Yes.
Change the whole community.
We can do that, but we need to admit that we got it wrong.
Yes.
Admit that we're ready to fix it. And if we're Christians, why not? Let's start from the Christian home. Let's try to fix it. Admit that we're wrong. There was a time I used to stay away from home, not because there was any problem, but it was the nature of my work. I would say good morning, we take the children to school. Then by the time they come back, I'm at work. By the time I get home, it's in bed. So that continued for a time. But then when I left that job, I realized I made a mistake, and I told my children, sorry, I was wrong. Dad was wrong. That's not the best way. Because I became a bit distant from my son.
Yes.
He was closer to his mom than myself. And he didn't bother me.
Wow.
But he said it. He said, in the family, because he's the only boy, in the family, one boy amongst 4 girls. So I called him. I knew he needed help. So I said, let's go. We'll sit down together, eat, paid for it. Let's eat, chat. Take him to restaurant. We eat. And all I was trying to do was to bond with him. And then sometimes I would say, let's go play golf. Take him to the driving range. We'll eat breakfast. Hit a few balls. Then sit down, eat full English breakfast. And if I had anything to say to him, say it there. Why? Because I didn't want the girls to hear. Because the moment they start hearing, he may want to defend himself, and we will not communicate. But because they went there, it was easy for us to talk. And sometimes friends would call me, the phone would ring, and he would stop for me to answer. I said, no, you are more important than that call.
That's right.
Let that wait. Let's carry on.
Yes.
Because once he starts saying, now the relationship is a lot better. We even now he's married, I try to make sure that he stays with his family. Now don't want to interfere. Just go on. You know what needs to be done. You, your wife, and your sons, then just carry on. Treat them well, and that's all. So again, it's I had a role to play, and if at the point I left it for my wife to do, but it didn't produce good fruits, so I decided to amend my ways.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's important, isn't it? That as fathers, we take responsibility and we say sorry and we mend our ways.
Okay, so we've talked about several things that make fathers be absent. And you've even mentioned that, sometimes fathers are physically there, but then they're absent. Like what you've mentioned about how you were going to work, coming back, not really seeing your children, not really bonding with them. And I just have a few more questions for you. So as men, as fathers, as grandfathers, as a great-grandfather, what are the pressures you think that you face as fathers? What are the pressures that you face daily, and how do you deal with them? Any of you can answer.
I think the pressure is society's expectations that you've got to be a certain way. society expectation that you're supposed to be earning so much,
Yeah.
and the sense of guilt that you're trying to earn, but at the same time you are neglecting
Your children.
the children and not raising the wise children. Dr. Yaya very well explained. And so there is that society expectations. There's the society expectations that we don't want to be there for our children at their birth, that we, I think fathers face that. Fathers face a lot of understanding, the negativity that have been put out there, the words that we use to describe fathers, deadbeat, fathers, absent, even the term absent fathers, all the negative things that is spoken about fathers. The positive things are not emphasized.
No, not as much as they are for mothers.
Yes. So terms like Disney dad is often used. And, Disney dad is only somebody who just really is there, just wants to give the Disney experience to the child. Deadbeat dad, absent dad. So all of the negative terms become the starting point to talk about dads. Whereas the starting point to talk about dads is very, very much the positive things, the things that fathers can do, input into a child's life. Because a father must be designed by God with certain things that a father has, in the same way that the woman has been designed to nurture and look after the child within the womb. And I think it's discovering that the positive things. Now, there's a song that I love. It's written and sung by Luther Vandross, and it's called "Dance with My Father." And you can tell the impact of fathers when you put on that song, because it's part of the words are "Dance with my father again."
Yeah. I love that
You
song.
just see how people feel when they know that their father passed away, and you put on that song. Tells you the impact of fathers on their child. If the father is absent, and same with Dr. Yaya shared with his experience, and you look at the experience of his son is saying that his son does not understand father going out there earning money. Son understands we don't have that time together. That is what I'm going to remember. We don't have that time together. And so the more we talk about fathers and the importance of fathers and what fathers can do with the support that they need, it's the difference that we're able to make. If a father is going through some mental health challenges, it has an impact on the child. So rather than criticizing the father, how can we support the father? So when a father is going through a mental health crisis, they feel confident to come forward because the village is supporting. The village is there. The village wants me to be able to play my part. And so the village comes along and supports me because the village know my importance of raising wise children, right? So we need to shift away from the negativity. You cannot encourage somebody by pulling them down. You've got to be able to build them up and show them that you have got the capacity. Here is the information that we can give you for you to be able to flourish in your fatherhood and to enjoy father. I enjoy being a father. I enjoy it. People tend to think, well, being a father or a grandfather, it's something, all that was. I enjoy it. I absolutely enjoy being a father. And I know many, many dads who enjoy being a father, right? But that is never spoken out, the joys of being a father, So yeah, promoting positive things about fatherhood.
Wow, that was very deep. Wow. And Dr. Yaya, do you have any final words to say?
Yes, I do. Um, the most important thing would be for us to rediscover God's will for the family. We have ideas, misconceptions.
Yeah.
We even read the Bible and invest biblical texts with our own meanings without actually doing proper treatment of biblical passages. Genesis 1, 2, they are very, very important.
Yes.
We need to sit down to understand it. And once we understand what God expects, it's easy to manage relationships. It's easy to define roles and responsibilities. It's very easy to for men to know who they are and what is expected. There's this common text people quote. They say, if a man does not look after his home, suppose then. But that's not
Worse than an infidel.
But that's not what he's saying.
Okay.
He didn't put the word man there in that sense. But if you don't understand the social world of that text, what used to happen, then a person will misinterpret the text. So we need to go back to find out what was actually said there. The context is, how do you care for widows?
Yes.
So, and then if you miss the social world of the text, you're likely to deploy that text and use it to flog men.
As a weapon.
And even some men will flog themselves and say, "Oh, don't you know the Bible says that if I don't care for my husband, and he feels dejected, feels down, feels unhappy, and sometimes contemplate committing suicide. There's no need. That's not what he's saying. So again, we bring a lot upon ourselves.
Lots of pressure.
And because we don't understand. There's nothing that says that a woman can't be the, breadwinner. There was a time when I left one job, I took time before I got another one. My wife had a stable job, and she was the one bringing money home. Now, if she came home every time and flogged me,
with that Bible verse, worse than an infidel.
But she told herself, she said, no, she wasn't going to make life uncomfortable for me. Because when she wasn't working, I was.
Yes.
I brought money, and that I was the one, the money that came into the family was from me. And why should I now become a victim? Why should I be punished for not getting a job? I tried, but I didn't get one. But eventually I got one. But then she was working, and it was a test. But she made sure that she provided, the money was there, and we used the money. And she tells our children now, before they went out, she said, look, your money is family's money. Don't sit down and say, you husband, take care of food, take care of this, you bring money, and then you keep your own money in the bank. She said, don't do that. She told them. She told me. She said she told the girls they shouldn't do that, because I know we have a common bank account. So my salary goes in there. Sometimes I don't even know how much. And she tells me that this is how much I get in.
Yes.
No, I don't know, but she knows how much goes into the account. So again, it depends on the relationship between both. So it's quite easy. If we want to solve marital problems, we can, and make the home look good. I also want to add quickly that for those who are interested in, or who have just become grandparents, or who are nearly there, or who are already in, there are quite a lot of materials out there. You you can read about grandparenting. It's a very stressful phase of a person's life. So research, I read this was, I think it was 2000 and possibly 2008 or so. I discovered this at King's College. Just saw something about grandparenting. I said, oh, that's interesting. So I decided to read about it. For those who are interested in it, you're just about to go in, it's good to read more about it, because now there will be other responsibilities. Grandchildren wanting to come and visit. Do you care for them? Do you buy gifts for them? And then will the children now say, look after your grandchildren? What do you do? I will also add that couples should be interested in their families, extended families, for a reason. If you marry and you don't understand the culture of your wife or husband, when certain things happen, you will be expected to do certain things.
Yes.
And if you don't do them, then that becomes a problem. We all think about it. You get old, you become old, then your father-in-law old, mother-in-law old. Now, if anything happens, some families will say, well, because you married their daughter, you have to do X, Y, Z. And if you say no, source of conflict.
Yes.
So sometimes these are the things that, as a man, yes, children have left, you're thinking about a number of other things because of the pressure, not from your children, but from
Extended family.
Yes, the family. Yes, that's absolutely.
Wow. Well, the thing you said about men being under pressure and people misquoting that Bible verse, it reminds me of a time I was in a church, and then the pastor said, if your husband is not earning money, if he's not bringing in money, lock the kitchen, don't feed him, only feed your children and lock the kitchen. So it's true, people misquote Bible verses and put men under so much pressure
Yes.
that God didn't even intend them to be under.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a very enlightening conversation.
Thank you.
For me, I think I've learned a lot. I'm understanding a bit more about men. And I hope, the men watching out there have also learned something. And if you've learned something, don't forget to like, comment, and of course, subscribe and share this with other men out there that you can help. So hopefully the words from these two knowledgeable grandfathers, men and scholars can make an impact out there. And just as we're rounding up, there's, this is the last phase of the podcast, and what we normally do is we have 3 numbers, 1, 2, and 3, and you have to pick a number, and whatever you pick, you have to do it. So I will start with, so who wants to go first, actually?
So just make me
There are 3
clear,
numbers,
yes.
number 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
You have to pick the number, and whatever you pick, you have to do it.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So who wants to go first?
Dr. Yaya? You want to go first, sir?
No, you can go first.
I'll go first. Okay. All right. So if I'm going first, then I will choose 1.
Number 1?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. So number 1, you actually have to rap.
Okay. No problem.
Can you rap?
Yes.
Really? You?
Yes.
Dr. Trevor? Okay.
Young people, listen to this. Let me tell you my story through my lyrics. You think because I'm a preacher, I can't flow, but once you're educated, there's much that you don't know. But it wasn't always so. You see, at your age, I thought it was cool. Bruv, did I say cool? No, I meant fool. You see, I thought partying and raving was my vocation, but I didn't appreciate the value of good education. As a result, I started shoplifting. End up in the police cell waiting for my mother to bring me out was like living hell. You see, I felt so ashamed because I knew into her life I was bringing her pain. You see, this is the way that people think that she would raise us to be. But you see, mom never once has been on social security. Told by the police to stay out of trouble for a year and then my police record would be clear. This is what I managed to achieve, but only left school with your equivalent of 2 GCSEs. Decided to go to college to extend my knowledge. There I learned something that Shakespeare said. And this is something I want you to get into your head. To be or not to be, Shakespeare asks the question that can only be answered through a good education. You want to say God is good, don't you?
How when did
When
wow when did you
You know, my own wow. I'm happy I didn't take number 1.
wow sorry, let me close my mouth. Wow. Are you gonna pick up?
No, I know number 1. I don't know how to do that. My son, yes, he's an expert. I'll play his song any day.
Wow.
He raps.
Wow. What number are you gonna be?
That makes it difficult now. So I'll take number 3.
Oh, okay.
Which means do nothing.
Number 3, you have to tell us an embarrassing story.
Oh, I remember you told her a story, didn't you?
Which one?
You remember when we were at Newman University? There was something that you told a story. You was doing a lecture. There was something that you told.
Yes, I'm trying to think of.
You could always pick number 2 if you don't want to do number 3.
What is number 2?
Does that mean you're picking it?
No, you explain it.
No, I can't tell you.
You
But
can't
if you
tell
pick
me.
it, so 2 or 3, choose. You want number 2?
That's, but if you try 1, you try 2. Okay, let's go 2.
2, you want 2? Okay. So he's picked number 2, right? You pick
Okay.
number 2, Dr. Yaya.
Okay, thank you very
You
much.
have to sing.
Sing.
Yeah.
That's a simple one.
Yeah, that's a simple one.
That's
You listen to
That's a
Yaya
simple
come
one.
up with a baritone
Are you
voice.
going to shock us like Dr. Trevor?
Yeah, which one should I sing? You came from heaven to earth to show the way, from the earth to the cross, my debt to pay, from the cross to the grave, from the grave to the sky. Lord, I lift your name high.
Yeah.
Something small.
Wow.
That
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for
welcome.
coming to the studio today. You've shocked me. You've shocked me. So if you enjoyed that, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment to let them know how what you've heard today has affected you. And if you want to find out more about Dr. Yaya and Dr. Trevor, just check the description below. You might see some links to some of their books or some material that might help you on fatherhood. So thank you for watching. See you again next time. Bye.